Yep. Should I be closer to the table? I just have to lean. Or then I moved, I'm sorry.
Hi, Johnson. You go live.
Good evening and welcome to another Big Red One Year Family Ask Me Anything live event. Ask Me Anything is an opportunity for our Big Red One families, soldiers, and veterans to share their personal experiences of building resilient homes through the use of many resources the Army provides. My name is Christian Bishop and I will be your host tonight. Today we have invited Mrs. Sarah Ikena. Sarah Ikena has been a military spouse for 20 years, and her husband Ike have 6 amazing kids and have been stationed all over the U.S. and Germany. Sarah has volunteered with the FRG at every level and is a practicing attorney who is licensed in 3 states. So please, let's take this time and welcome Mrs. Ikena. Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule working and having kids and your husband being deployed to answer some questions for us. Do you just want to take some time to kind of introduce and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So my husband and I have been married over 20 years, and we met when I was in law school and he was stationed at Fort Hood. And I had no idea about anything about being a military spouse or being an Army wife. And about 6 weeks after we got married, 9/11 happened. And so that completely changed what it was like to be a military spouse, and definitely changed our lives. And so as we have made our family and been a family and had children and traveled all over America and Germany, it's been with deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, rotational deployments to Korea, and now this current deployment to Eastern Europe. So it's definitely been a whirlwind, and I have learned a lot, and we've loved a lot, and we've definitely come to enjoy and take advantage of all the programs that the Army has to offer. And this is our 3rd time in the Big Red One, so it is home for us. So not just being in the Army is home, but the Big Red One is home for us too.
Yeah. Well, I was glad to see you guys back. I remember you guys probably your 2nd duty station when I was at CYS, and I had the twins there, and then I transitioned. So again, it was exciting to see you and exciting to have this time to spend with you. So as mentioned, Ask Me Anything is a chance for you, the audience, to ask us questions. If you don't get your question answered, please check back in the comment section, and you will find the resources or any answers needed. We will take the next 45 minutes to answer some questions, so let's go ahead and get started. I recently became a military spouse, and I'm feeling overwhelmed by all the uncertainty with groups or clubs. Can I get involved with so I don't feel alone?
That's an excellent question, and it's funny, I'm an introvert, and so the idea of joining things is a little scary for me and always has been, and so that was definitely something that was a challenge for me because I'm not a joiner and I don't necessarily like big groups of people, but there definitely have been times in different duty stations where I had to reach out to try and make friends and get to know people. And I will say that probably of all the different things there are, because USO, ACS, they always have amazing groups, especially for young moms, for people that don't have children, but for newer spouses, there are all kinds of programs. But the Spouses Club, and most installations, most divisions have a Spouses Club. I think that's an excellent way to get to know people. And it's also an excellent resume builder because there are usually positions on the board that need to be filled. And so it's a really great way, especially often younger spouses are working on careers or working on education. And so it's a really good way to get to know people, but to also start to kind of point yourself in a direction as far as what you might want to do for yourself.
Thank you. My spouse is on deployment and I have a baby. I don't know what resources are available to us or where we should even start. I'm just so lost right now.
Always, ACS is an amazing resource, and they have a lot of programs and guides to help new families. And so also, I would say that it's not just the Army community, but so many of the communities that we live in, and I will say that Fort Riley is particularly special because we have Junction City, we have Geary County, we have Manhattan and Riley County and Abilene and Dickinson County, and so there are a lot of resources within the counties that can help. There are a lot of YMCA programs, there are Boys and Girls Clubs, but there are a lot of programs that can help with connecting new families with resources. If you have a new baby and you need a lactation specialist, obviously our own hospital has resources, but the hospitals within our communities also have resources. And so if you don't find the answer you need on post, you can always go outside, but if you can't find what you need off post, we always have things on post that can help. And I have found, I think Facebook is an amazing tool for connecting people with resources. And so there's so many spouses groups that are on Facebook. Whenever I have an issue or I'm thinking about doing something, that's usually the first place I go. And so there's always someone who has advice. Your FRG, or what we now call the SFRG, there are a lot of resources and ways to be connected that way. And a lot of people volunteer with the SFRG, and it's a really great place because a lot of the spouses that are connected with SFRGs have had the experiences that you have and have needed the resources that you need. And so it's a really great way to help, the short, easy, quick way to get resources and answers our fellow spouses, because they've usually been through it before.
Yeah. And I'm going to play advocate. Can you kind of explain to some of the newer spouses that are just getting here kind of what SFRG is and where they can maybe even get connected as far as being part of the SFRG?
Absolutely. So no matter what installation you are, and obviously Fort Riley is where we are, when your spouse goes to a new unit, they process into that unit. And so there are a lot of resources that are handed out in those times when you're in processing places, but also when you go to a unit, they're going to collect your information. And either they reach out to you, but you can also reach out to them. And so the people that volunteer, and it's for soldiers and families, that's why we've added the S, is so that soldiers and families, and it's readiness group for the whole unit and the families involved, but that's where you would go to connect with them. And sometimes, if you can't find it through your soldier member and you're having trouble with it, again, Facebook is always a great place because so often units have Facebook pages, and there are plenty of people that will always reach out and help you connect with people. I think more than anything with Army life is there's always somebody who's willing to help and to help you connect with those resources that you need.
Thank you for that. My family and I recently PCS'd to Fort Riley. What resources can I utilize to find employment near the installation?
Okay, so I'm excited to answer this question. Part of the reason I even wanted to be here today is because I do work, and it's been a long journey. And so there are a lot of things that you can do to help prepare yourself for employment. Before we even get to an installation, I usually sign up on Indeed, Monster, ZipRecruiter, all the different places that might advertise for positions. I also get on Facebook and try and connect with, I'm an attorney, and so I look for different organizations on Facebook around. So when we came here, I connected with Kansas attorney Facebook pages. And so for me, I'm usually trying to get my finger on the pulse of jobs before we even get here. But once you are here, ACS has programs, but also within the community there are programs. Usually the counties have access for people to look for positions and look for jobs. But again, finding people within the community that are working, spouses that are working, is also a really great way to find jobs and to find positions. But volunteering with the SFRG is another really great way to do that. And I know people always say volunteer, and even I used to roll my eyes at that because I want to get paid and I want money, I don't want to volunteer. But when we first got to Fort Riley, the first time we were here, that was how I got the job. I did volunteer for a period of time. The job that I wanted opened up and I was able to work. And so that was, sometimes it does work. People's advice is often correct, even though it may not be what you want to hear. But there are a lot of different avenues to finding work.
Thank you for I have been here for 6 months, and we've kind of talked about this. I want to meet other wives. I've put messages in various group chats, but no responses. Kind of other than social media or Facebook, are there other spaces maybe around the installation or off that I can either meet military spouses or just spouses in general?
Sure, absolutely. I think that one of the amazing things about Fort Riley is the USO here. There are a lot of volunteer opportunities within the USO, and it's a really great way to meet people because there are some good groups there are coffee groups and things that you can meet people. And volunteering, you're going to be able to meet people. There are also, I know people sometimes volunteer with the animal groups, the animal shelters. That's a good way to meet people. Volunteering with schools. Even if you're not a parent, if you don't have children, it's still a good way to meet people. For me, that was one of the ways that I got to know the community in Junction City and Manhattan was by volunteering. I got to know people that aren't military. And so I got to have a better understanding of the right mechanics to go to and hair salons and those kinds of dentists and doctors and those kinds of things because I got to connect with people that weren't necessarily military. Now a lot of people were military connected at some time, but it's a good way to meet people that may not be military affiliated.
Yep.
There are a lot of churches in the community and there are a lot of social clubs outside in Junction City as well.
That's cool. If you could tell your past self one word of advice about being a military spouse, what do you think it would be?
Oh gosh, one word.
Yeah.
I would say patience. Do I get to explain my one word?
Yes, of course.
I think that especially when you're very new at being a military spouse, it is very overwhelming. When we went to Germany the first time, it was right before the invasion to Iraq, and I was pregnant, and we were in a foreign country, and my husband had 48 hours notice and he was on a plane and gone. And I was pregnant in a foreign country, and so first time mom, had never been that far from home, and it was very overwhelming. And it just, I think that when you've been affiliated with the military longer, you start to understand to have patience. Just because your spouse comes home and says something that they're going to deploy or this thing's going to happen, that initial panic that you might feel, to have patience because often things change, dates change, times change, missions change. And so just to have patience with yourself and patience with your spouse and just to have that understanding that things do change. And when you're PCSing and that kind of uncomfortable period of time of when you first get somewhere, to have patience with yourself because there is an adjustment time. So again, having patience and not being so quick to, oh, I hate this or I'm so uncomfortable, I don't like this, and lashing out at family members or your spouse or yourself or whatever it is, to have patience and understand that it takes time. And I think that sometimes, I remember one time somebody said something to me about, well, they weren't like me, they weren't born to do this or they weren't natural at it. I also wasn't. I don't think anyone is. Yep. But over time, you start to develop resiliency, you start to develop skills, and you start to learn what resources there are that are available, and you start to form a group. And one of the wonderful things about Facebook, I think, is that it does allow you to create a long-term support network that you might not have been able to build 20 or 30 years ago, that you can now build and carry with you. But having patience and just patience with yourself, patience with your spouse and the situation, I think is probably, that would be the one word if I could tell my younger self, that's what it would be.
Yeah, and you kind of talk about like social media and just kind of the growth of, thinking back 20 years ago when, your husband deployed and, there wasn't an instant like messenger to say like, hey, how are you? Or even a phone call. Like I hate to say like old history of the letters that you had to mail, but it is a great thing to see how times have changed where spouses are, a lot of times able to kind of have that communication easier at the tip of the finger, but the patience of knowing that they're working, so it's not always like they're ignoring you or they can't get back to you, but
absolutely.
Stuff like that.
That is so true, and I think that the more I have worked, I have a better understanding of when he would work later. When I was younger and we were newly married, I didn't have a lot of patience with him coming home late. I didn't have a concept, I didn't understand. All I knew was that I'd been home with the kids all day long. And so, yeah, patience is definitely, but it's funny you mentioned letters because I have bins of letters from his very first deployment or our first deployment together of all the letters that I wrote him. He didn't write back so much, but I definitely wrote a lot of letters to him. So.
When you are tired and you don't want to cook, what are some places that you and your family like to eat? And when you do cook, like what are just some of your favorite meals?
Okay. I'm going to start with when I do cook because I don't know if it's a deployment if you haven't had breakfast for dinner. I think that is every deployed spouse of a deployed service member, that is the tool in your pocket is breakfast for dinner because even if it's a bowl of cereal or eggs and pancakes or bacon, it's something that you can keep on hand and always when you're tired. And it generally, and even with 6 kids, breakfast for dinner seems to fit everybody and it's something that we can all eat and it works well. And here, when we're on Fort Riley, we always seem to find our favorite Asian food takeout restaurant, and so and it's funny, the one that we used to use when we were here before is not the one we use now. Yeah. But we have our go-to takeout restaurant, and we also eat a lot of pizza probably. But we definitely take advantage of the restaurants in Junction City, not so much in outside of, but we definitely eat within. We eat La Fiesta and Cracker Barrel and Billy Sims and JC Barbecue and all the different. There's so many different restaurants in Junction City. There are a lot of different options, and I know a lot of people like to do DoorDash and Grubhub and those kinds of things. But there are a lot of options, so we definitely take advantage of that. Probably more than probably I need to cook more, but yeah. Definitely.
How do you personally keep from being How do you personally keep work from being brought home, whether that it's you or your spouse? Like, how do you kind of have that, leave the work at home, or, how do you kind of transition?
Sure. I think that's a difficult question. It's a difficult thing to do. And I think that, again, patience, understanding that they're different, especially with the military, soldier members are on call. And they have their expectations that when they are called, they have to go places and do things. And so it's difficult, I think, when you have friends that don't have spouses in the military and their spouses are around more. And so, again, patience and just kind of understanding that there are times that they're going to have to bring work home or they're going to have to answer a phone call that's inconvenient. It just is part of that understanding and patience with them. For myself, I have had different jobs where I've had to bring a phone home, and it's funny, sometimes my husband has 2 phones and sometimes he doesn't. Right now I have 2 phones, and so it's kind of unique to be the shoe on the other foot because my phone rings at all hours of the day or night. And the first time that happened when he was here, I was apologizing because it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. He's like, I get it. And I was like, yes, you do. So, but it's a tough thing, and I think that being passionate about what you do, and I think most of our spouses are very passionate about what they do, serving our country. And so understanding that passion and what's involved in that, and to me, good things come at a high price. And so that's just part of it. And so a lot of it is understanding. Sometimes we try to make space and to not have that, but when things happen, to have that understanding that you're going to have to take a phone call, you're going to have to answer an email, and that's just part of the life that we lead.
Yeah. And then another question is, with your kids, how do you, kind of explain to them? Because maybe in younger eyes, they don't understand, like, well, dad's, on the phone, or, having them understand the mission at hand of, sometimes you have to take work home, but, when I'm here, I'm, attentive and here for you. So
Sure.
How do you help the kids?
I think, and again, for us, it's been a long time, and we've had a lot of deployments, and we've had a lot of difficult duty assignments and duty stations, and we just start talking at a very early age about how important the job is and about serving our country and what their dad does, and so that's the frame of reference that we operate in, and so when things come up, they understand that they're serious. And that it's not because he doesn't want to be with you, or he doesn't want to, if he has to step out, we're in a concert and he has to step out, or even if he can't come to a doctor's appointment, or if he does come to a doctor's appointment and he steps out, there's a reason for it. And so just to make sure that they understand, and obviously an age-appropriate explanation is important, but it's something that I have always tried to do, because I don't want them to have resentment for their father. And so I've worked very hard as our kids have grown up to make sure that they do understand that this is important, that I don't roll my eyes and huff and puff when he does those things, because then they'll see that that's my reaction to it. And so what our soldiers are doing is very important, even when, no matter where they are, if they're in garrison, if they're in the field, if they're deployed, it's all important. And to make sure our kids understand that, so when those things happen, that it's for a very good reason. I think it helps them understand and be understanding of it. But yes, there are times when putting phones to the side and trying to make sure that we're focused and attentive. And I think that our soldier does a good job of that. He's very, when he is home, gets down on their level, especially when they were smaller. Obviously now some of them are over 6 feet tall, so it's a little hard. But, you know, to be very focused on them when he is home, and working in an environment where if you have to step away for a doctor's appointment or if you have to step away for things is always helpful, and being family friendly. So I think that those, so that when you are there, you can be there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a soldier, and I've recently thought about returning to college to finish my degree. What are some resources on post that can help me get back to school?
Okay, so it's interesting because during COVID, I actually got frustrated because I was having a hard time finding work that worked with having kids at home and having kids on Zoom. We were on the East Coast when COVID happened, and so our kids were out of school or were on Zoom school. And so I started to go back to school using my husband's GI Bill. And so the Education Center is a really great resource. There are a lot of different universities that are available, but also the VA Center, the Education Benefits. There's a hotline that you can call. They are incredibly helpful. We've navigated it very easily. I've never had any issues with it. And so to be able to go to school and take advantage of those benefits, it's there, and the system is there to help you. And there are a lot of people, there are a lot of universities that have a military liaison, and so they can help you with those benefits. But having that contact yourself with the Education Center, either on post or the VA Education Benefits number, that's a really good way to make sure that you are taking advantage of your benefits and that you're not missing out on something or losing something, and you're using it efficiently. But they're definitely very good resources with the Education Center, so to help with that.
I'm new to the area and I don't know much about the Midwest. What are some places that me and my family can go to, either as they're visiting or just, you know, as we start to get settled?
Sure, absolutely. It's funny, when we first came here, we had never even thought about Fort Riley, and it was on one of the lists, and so we thought, well, gosh, we'll try it. We don't like to go to the same place twice, even though that's what we've done here, but that was because we loved it so much. And so when we ended up having an issue with our flight, and so we had to drive from Kansas City to Manhattan, that's where our hotel was, and then on to Fort Riley. But when we drove through Topeka, I just, you know, it's one of the things you learn in school, the state capitals. And so it was really neat to drive through Topeka, and just, I never in a million years thought I would ever be in Topeka, Kansas. But there are some amazing things to visit with the Capitol in Topeka. There's a history museum in Topeka, which is excellent. Manhattan has a lot of different things to see and do. But even right here in Junction City, there's a historical museum. There's a museum on post here on Fort Riley that's being renovated, but I believe that will be open and available. But there are all kinds of vehicle artifacts that are near that museum that kids can walk, and kids, parents, everybody can walk around and look at. So there are a lot of really interesting things. There's a ton of hiking. The Konza Prairie hiking trail is incredible. I think that whenever I am here, we're here, the idea that the settlers and pioneers and what they went through. So to be on the Konza Prairie and to really kind of have a concept of what that was like then, and what they were bringing wagons and cattle and things over. But there's a lot of hiking and trail. And I know that they recently renovated the Riverwalk, which is right outside Trooper Gate. And so that is going to be an incredible, we haven't had a chance to go out because I know that happened a couple weeks ago, but I know that was a big project, and it's made it safer and more accessible to people. So they're definitely, that's definitely a great resource. And I know Moon Lake on Post they put fish in it every year. And so if you like to fish, that's a really great thing to do is to be able to go and fish out there. There's a lot of hunting if you like to hunt. There's resources on post. Fort Riley is amazing. There's so many different things. If you like to shoot trap or skeet or sporting clays, there's a place for that. There's even an ATV riding course if you're into that. So there really is something for there's an arts and crafts center here. There's a woodworking shop and painting your own ceramics right here on post. Not that there aren't places off post, but if you wanted to paint ceramics, we do that fairly often. Quarterly, I guess, we go and paint new things. So there is a lot to see and do in this area, and so you really don't have to be bored. And it is great for outdoor people that like to be outdoors, but there are plenty of really great things to do indoors as well.
Thank you. You mentioned that this was your third duty station. Why did you and your family kind of choose to come back to Kansas if you guys have had a choice in one of your picks to come back?
Absolutely. So this was our 12th PCS move. And so my husband was in the Big Red One over in Germany, so when it was in Germany before. So this is our second time here at Fort Riley. And when we first came back in 2015, we had come from Germany, our second duty station in Germany. And it's so beautiful. And the people are so incredibly kind in the community. We were all overwhelmed. It wasn't just me, but we were all overwhelmed by the kindness of the people. I think the first time we'd come from Germany and I was in Target and someone walked up to me and asked me if I needed help, an employee, and it just floored me. And I just didn't, and then we went to Walmart not long after that and the same thing happened. Somebody asked if I needed help and I just had never, ever, and been to Walmarts all over America and in Germany, and it just was not, no one had ever come up and asked me if I needed anything. But we have made such amazing connections with people. Part of the reason I have the job that I have now is because of the connections that I made the first time that we were here. And it's just such a beautiful place combined with amazing resources on post. And the Big Red One seems to draw incredible leadership and amazing people. And so the combination of it all, when we found out we were coming back, our entire family, all 6 of our kids, both of us were just thrilled, and that's very rare to find a duty station that everybody wants to go to. So we were just so excited, and the school system here is amazing. Obviously, we've had kids in school systems all over the country and overseas, and USC 475 is an amazing school district. And we've had kids elementary school, middle school, high school, preschool, in the CDC, on post, and have just had amazing experience, and just have had we have some kids that have IEPs, and so we have experience with special education department and programs here as well. And it's just incredible, and people are very responsive and reactive if we've ever had an issue. But the teachers are always amazing, and the community is incredibly supportive of the school, and so that's also had a lot to do with why we were so happy to be here.
So I have a young child about age 2, and I'm looking for a type of care. Can you make any suggestions on how I can either get him enrolled in activities or what resources I have on post for them?
Absolutely. So Parent Central Services is going to be your main place. The Skies Unlimited program and MWR, those are going to be the places on post at least that you can access those things. And so I know the pool has programs for, I think they call it bubble guppies, for young kids to be able to swim. There's dance classes and gymnastics and sports for pretty young ages on post as well. And so our MWR program and again ACS with the Parent Central Services have some incredible programs, and we have taken advantage in the past of the CDC, the Child Development Center. We had kids in, I think we've had 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old pre-K program. We were looking at pictures the other day on Facebook, and it dropped down from one of our, when our kids graduated from the preschool or the pre-K program on post here on Fort Riley, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, but there are some amazing programs on post for kids even that age.
You've been heavily involved in the SFRG. What are some easy ways that I can get involved with this program? Is there a sign up, or is there a link, or how do I not only be in the FRG, but you also mentioned the Spouses Club in particular?
Absolutely, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I just saw the super sign up for the Spouses Club. I saw, and they have actually a QR code that you can scan. So if you go to Facebook, the Fort Riley Spouses Club, you can scan that QR code and sign up to join the Spouses Club. But as far as the SFRG, that's again something that's unit specific, and so it'll be through your soldier members' chain of command that to get that information. And usually when you in process, that should be part of that gathering information to get your data and your information so that the SFRG can reach out to you. But I always tell people SFRG is based on volunteers, and so you also have to reach out as well. So, but reaching out to that unit again. Most people or most units have Facebook pages that you can get that information from. And sometimes, I think recently I've seen some different on the Fort Riley Spouses page, people have asked those questions and people are super quick to connect spouses with that information, contact information for the SFRG so they can gather that information. And I believe the ACS also holds that information. So if you go to ACS, they should be able to help you as well to connect to your soldier member's specific SFRG unit.
So my parent was also prior military, and you mentioned the Spouses Club. My mother mentioned when she was growing up, the Spouses Club was specific to officer spouses. Is this something, or is there a group for enlisted spouses to join a group, or is the Fort Riley Spouses Club all inclusive to lower enlisted?
So the Fort Riley Spouses Club is inclusive to everyone, and so it doesn't matter the rank of the soldier member. It is open to everyone, and they are incredible to include everyone, and so everyone is invited and welcome to come out.
And can you talk about some of the activities that the Spouses Club kind of does? Like, is it something that you as a spouse would have to attend every month or every week, or is it, you go to activities when you can?
So they do have monthly lunches, and so that is something that, and you can attend one and not another. I work, and so it doesn't always work out for me to attend the monthly lunches, but they also do have evening events. There are some things throughout the course of the year that if you aren't available during the day that you can attend. And if you want a board position, that's something that the attendance for that is a little different if you want to volunteer with that. So, but there are a wide range of events, and they often have sub-clubs. And so if you're interested in bunco or reading, book clubs, going to movies, sightseeing, there are usually other groups that you can go to and get involved in. And so those schedules are a little different. And then again, there isn't a mandatory attendance, and you can pick and choose what you go to and get involved in. And I'll say also that the Spouses Club does usually sponsor a charity or a community outreach program, which is amazing. And I know that they give a lot of money away every year based on when they are able to gather funds and donations and to be able to give those back out into the community. So there are a lot of really great opportunities to volunteer with the Spouses Club.
Thank you. Let's see. What were some of the adjustments or the culture shocks that you guys experienced being stationed from Germany back to CONUS, Fort Riley? I mean, you talked about, just the Midwestern comfort of saying hi at Walmart, Target, but what are some other culture shocks that some new families could maybe experience either going to Germany or coming back?
So it is a different country, and so the culture is different, and there is a period of time, again, that word patience is important because it does take some time to get used to a new place. I remember one of the first periods of time when we just had gotten to Germany, and the very first time, and the shower system, the handles were different than I was used to, and I scalded myself in the shower, and I couldn't, it took me a while to figure out which was hot and which was cold. And then when the second time, actually no, it was the first time we got there, we had gotten there really late, and I was pregnant, and we were exhausted, and we had a dog and a cat, and all, it was just baggage and all these things. And we went to the shop because it was the only thing open, and we got a pizza and a macaroni and cheese, and we stuck the pizza in the oven, put it on. My husband's good with the Celsius and the Fahrenheit, and we set it in the oven. But what we didn't know is that it locked at a certain temperature, and so we watched our pizza basically catch on fire and just burn, and we had to wait to be able to open it up. But fortunately, there are a lot of people when you PCS to Europe or to Germany that have experience with it. And ACS has a lending closet. So when you get there, if you don't have your things, they have furniture and silverware and sheets and towels and all kinds of things. And so when you lean on the community, there are really great and easy ways to start to get used to the culture and to get used to living somewhere different.
What is probably one of the hardest moments you had to overcome as a military spouse?
Anytime we have to say goodbye, that's always gut-wrenching. Just think about it, it's hard. But I will say that one of the hardest things for us, or for me, when we were in Germany, I did not do a good job of setting up a support system for myself. And our, at the time, 5-year-old fell out of a tree and broke his arm. And so badly, bones sticking out. It was obviously terrible, and we had to go to the emergency room. And we had 6 kids, and I had not connected with people, and so I didn't have people to help me. And I hadn't thought through who I was going to ask if I needed to be away or if there's some kind of emergency. And shamefully had been a military spouse long enough that I should have known better. And that was really, really difficult because I ended up having to stay overnight in a German hospital. Not a lot of people spoke English, and my son was in terrible pain, and it was very difficult. And I do a terrible job of keeping my phone charged. And so my phone was practically dead, and I didn't have a charger. All these things that I had not thought about needing to do, and not having that support system. And again, that's why it is important to get to know people and to join groups and clubs so that you do have people that when things happen, that you can reach out and say, hey neighbor, hey friend, I have this emergency, I need help. Because, we're all away from our families, and so there isn't that automatic or built-in support system. And so you do have to develop those relationships with people because you're gonna need help at some point. So, and you're going to have to ask for help. And so that was a really hard moment for me, and a really hard lesson about reaching out and getting to know people.
So Sarah, again, I just want to thank you for taking this time to provide, your story about resiliency, being a working spouse, being a spouse, and all of the resources. So before we go, is there anything that you would just like to share to the audience? Any tidbit, any word of advice, or just, anything else you would like to share with us?
Absolutely. I will say that the most important thing for me, and the advice that I would give, is to make a life for yourself in this life, because it is an amazing experience, but you can lose yourself very easily. For me, while being a volunteer and working with the SFRG and the FRG, as it used to be, was fulfilling, and it was helpful and good way to connect to people and help soldiers and families. It really wasn't necessarily who I was. And so when I went back to work, that was really important for me, and it has really made a big difference in my life as a military spouse, because I went out and made a life for myself within the life. So, and it's sometimes hard because we PCS and move, and I have to start all over again and find a new job. But it has been really important for me to help hold pieces of myself together so that I can be the best I can be for my spouse, for our family, for the people in our community when I'm taking care of myself. And part of that for me is working. And that isn't what is best for everybody, but figuring that out and finding that out is probably the best thing that I have ever done. And again, it made this road a lot easier for me because I was honoring who I was. And it's not the Stepford wife, you have to be a certain way to be a military spouse. That's not what this is about. It's really about being your best self and bringing what you can bring to the table as a military spouse to your family and to the community. But honoring who you are is the most important thing I think that we can all do.
Thank you again. And thank you again to our live audience. If you guys had a question that did not get answered, please, again, check back either onto this thread or the 1st Infantry Division page for any resource links, any activities or events going on. Thank you again, and have a great night.